Hey everyone, a very good evening to all of you. This is Sheetal, a verbal teacher here at Hitbullseye, and you are watching yet another live from Hitbullseye on MBA, specially for your CAT exam. So if you remember, we did a live on sentence rearrangement topic of your verbal ability and reading comprehension section of CAT exam. We are further going to talk about it. We are further going to see some more examples so that the learning gets reinforced in your mind. And I believe this is going to be I believe this will be helpful, highly crucial for you in your upcoming exam. So without any further delay, let's begin. So if you remember the pattern of CAT exam, and especially VARC section, the verbal ability and reading comprehension section, so you get 4 types of question. The first and the let's say the bulk is covered by the 16 questions of RC. So the maximum questions are from RC. Then you have 3 questions on sentence rearrangement in which you get sentences which are randomly put. They are put in hazardous manner, let's say, and you are asked to arrange them in a cohesive way, in a paragraph that makes sense, that's understandable, that is properly sequenced, or let's say properly ordered. So 3 questions from sentence rearrangement and 2 questions on misfit. Again in misfit you get 4 to 5 sentences. So you have to find out that one sentence which is not in sync with the rest of the sentences. So even if you take out that particular sentence, the meaning of the passage as a whole will not be distorted. So then it's up to you. If you can directly verify or identify that one particular sentence which is no way related to the passage, well and good. If you are not able to do it directly, the other way is, first of all, try to arrange those sentences in a sequence and then see which line is out of sync. It becomes easier that way. So 2 from misfit and again 3 from para completion. So we did sentence rearrangement in the last class. Today we're going to see the misfit questions, and I assure you we'll soon come with para completion questions and RCs also. So I thought this would be a good drill, a good practice for you people before your CAT exam, and this will give you some idea about how to attempt the question. So even in our today's slides, we have a question from 2017 CAT exam that will give you some idea about what kind of questions come in exam. So without any further delay, let's see what finding out a misfit is. So introduction to misfit. First of all, you will be given a few sentences. As I've already told you, number of sentences can be 4 or 5. They'll be marked like A, B, C, D, E, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you need to identify the one that does not fit the context of the sentence. So what does this mean, not fitting the context of the rest of the sentences or the paragraph? So we know every paragraph or a passage, it has an idea which is prevalent throughout, and there is a progression of that idea. So it cannot go in any direction. There has to be a sequence, there has to be a structure. So after enough practice, you will be able to develop this ability to understand, to critically analyze those sentences and guess which one line is in no way sync with the other lines, right? So example is, out of the 4 given sentences, any 3 are going to form a coherent paragraph. Coherent paragraph is the one which is tightly knit, out of which you cannot take out one of the sentences. It's going to distort the meaning of that passage. So leaving that one sentence which is the misfit, the rest of the sentences, they will form a coherent paragraph, and the 4th needs to be taken out, and that's the thing we have to do in exam. Right, so what are the skills required to deal with questions of para jumbles, we can say sentence rearrangement or misfit? So every other question requires a different kind of ability, a different kind of attitude towards, dealing with that question. So RCs have their own way of dealing, and if we talk about the sentence rearrangement or finding the misfit, the required skills are that these questions tests your ability to comprehend and identify coherent theme in the paragraph and identify the sentence which is not in consistency with the logical flow. So if we talk about RCs, you still have a better chance because you can look at the passage again, you can revisit the passage again and try to answer the questions accordingly. But for sentence rearrangement, you need to have this logical, critical bend of mind to understand the flow of thought. For this, you need to understand the thought of the speaker or the author who's written that, and this is gonna be you'll be comfortable with this, you'll be able to do this only after you've read enough, you've practiced question, you've taken mock tests, right? So it checks your ability to detect an anomaly in the data. Anomaly is something that is not normal, that doesn't fit the rest of the sentences. So you'll quickly have to go through all the sentences and guess that one sentence which is an anomaly, which is not fit or which is not in sync with the rest of the sentences, right? I hope this much is clear, guys. Alright, so let's move on. Now that we know what is the requirement of sentence rearrangement questions, let's see if you can do it. So try to do these questions first of all by your own, and then I'll go on to explain these. So here is an example before you, and the question is which one is the odd sentence, or take out the odd sentence. So first is, Tagore was a social phenomenon of his time and his universal aspirations took him around the globe. So by the first line we see Tagore has been introduced, something about him has been talking about, they've talked about Tagore, right? So if we look at the second sentence, around 1613, at the age of 49, he retired to Stratford, where he died 3 years later. So even before moving to the rest of the lines, you can guess it first of all by looking at the year. Was Tagore alive during this time? And then after that, you can see Stratford has been mentioned. Was Tagore there? Did he die there? So there are certain questions, there are certain cases where you can use your wise guessing if you have the knowledge of that area. Even if you don't know about it, you've not read about it, still you don't need to fret about it because there are other hints also, right? Let's see how. The third is, few records of Shakespeare's private life survive. You see, the second poet, the second writer has been introduced, that is Shakespeare. Now your mind should be, there should be a doubt in your mind, as in, are they talking about, or the lines, the sentences are about Tagore or Shakespeare? Let's further confirm it. He died on 23rd April 1616 at the age of 52. So 1613, 1616, close enough. He died within a month of signing his will, a document which he begins by describing himself as being in perfect health. So his will, Shakespeare left the bulk of his large estate to his elder daughter Susanna. Again, Shakespeare has been mentioned. So isn't that clear enough that Tagore is the odd one out? So rest of the lines, Stratford, it's in England, it's in Europe, and all these lines, they form a sequence. They are all linked to each other, but out of nowhere, Tagore has also been mentioned. So it becomes quite clear that first, yes Priya, your answer is absolutely right. So as these are theta questions, you get this option, you can write 1. So right answer is 1. Let's see if you can do the next one. Okay, so first of all, before moving to the next question, let's quickly have a look at the steps to be followed while dealing with questions of sentence rearrangement. First of all, you need to find the subject or the topic. So find the general theme, find the opening sentence, right? So you can call it anything. You can call it the subject, the main idea, the theme, right? The opening line, as in that main thing that is being talked about throughout, that is being discussed or at least touched upon in all of the rest of the sentences, right? So first step is immediately after reading the first 2-3 sentences, you should be able to guess what are these lines about, what is the main theme recurrent in all the given sentences. So after finding out the subject and the opening line, find out the sentences which can be put in pairs. So there are certain sentences which go along with each other, which easily gel well with each other, and you get to know about them after reading all the sentences. Let's say there can be a cause mentioned in one sentence and an effect mentioned in some other. So they can be a pair. Again, another example is there might be a noun, name of a person mentioned in one sentence, something is being talked about in that sentence about that person. Immediately after that, try to find out the other sentence in which a pronoun for the same person is used and something else has been mentioned. So again, there can be a pair of contrary ideas also. So there are n number of clues given in the sentences. It's just that you have to have that eye to find those clues. So second is try to make pairs. Then find at least one connection which gives you a reason to single out the misfit. As in the last one, the connection was Shakespeare. Everything about him was being talked about. His year of death was talked about. The place was talked. He signed a will, that was also talked about. So it revolved around death of Shakespeare, right? You have to find out that one connecting idea which is recurrent in all the sentences. Then put the rest of the paragraph together by eliminating the misfit. So by now you must have guessed that one particular sentence or option which is not gelling with any other sentence. Try to remove it and then have a look at the rest of the sentences again. Now if you think yes, it is a cohesive passage, it is a coherent one, then your answer is right. So next step will be make a tentative order, try to make an order of the remaining sentences and then shortlist from the options. Now you've guessed one option, try to tally it with the given options. Alright, so let's see if you can do it now. Read this question now. Considering the multitude of situations in which we humans use numerical information, life without numbers is inconceivable. So what is being talked about? What are we introduced to? What is the theme or the subject? It is the numbers, right? The numerical operations and its relation with the humans. Alright, so let's see what is the next sentence. One of the key findings over the past decades is that our number faculty is deeply rooted in our biological ancestry and not based on our ability to use language. Again, they are talking about numbers, they are relating it to human ancestry, and they are saying that humans have been using numbers or number operations from time immemorial, even without knowing it, even without consciously going for the quantitative math that we know today. So somehow number has always been getting along. Third sentence is, before numerically competent animals evolved on the planet, single-celled microscopic bacteria, the oldest living organisms on the earth, already exploited quantitative information. Again, so we can see all in all every line is talking about the numbers and their relation with the living organisms. So this becomes a little tricky. For this you'll have to go a step ahead because all the lines are talking about number. You have to find out the one which might carry that one misfit idea or something that is no way, or let's say somehow not related to the rest of the lines. Let's see if you can find it out. Why would animals crunch numbers in the first place? So as in the author is speculating over that why were animals, even before discovering the language, how were they able to solve or let's say deal with the numbers, crunch numbers? But what was the benefit of numerical competence for our ancestors before they became Homo sapiens? Another question. So see, there is a hint that if one sentence can ask a question, it can pose some hypothesis, it can show you some speculation, why can't the other question, right? So these are both legible questions. All right, let's see if you can answer it now. Try to guess the right answer. Okay, good try, Priya. I would say a good try it was, but then let's see. Okay, so second can be our opening line, guys. See, it is introducing us to the idea. That is one of the key findings over the past decade. So the finding is first of all introduced to us. So this we can say is the opening line. The opening line, let's see. So considering the multitude of situation in which we use numerical information, life without numbers is inconceivable. First of all, they are talking about some discovery, some finding, and then they are mentioning that finding. So logically and in sequence, this becomes the second sentence. So if you have a look at fourth and the fifth, both are continuation of this idea, but fifth is more apt to be the next one in situation. But what was the benefit of numerical competence for our ancestors? Because first of all, it has been mentioned that humans have been using or they have been exploiting or using the multitude of the numbers. So this again talking about our ancestors, showing the speculation, why were our ancestors and how were they able to comprehend this, how were they using the numbers. So this becomes the third. And why would animals crunch numbers in the first place? Continuing this speculation is also valid in the given context. This becomes the fourth. So this one is the misfit. Why? Because we are talking about microscopic bacteria, the oldest living organisms on earth, already exploited quantitative information. So we don't have substantial proof that and it's nowhere mentioned in other lines that the microscopic organisms, they exploited the proper quantitative information. So that becomes a little more specific, little more particular, about which we are not sure. So this makes it the misfit. Yes, Priya, I believe you understood it now. Okay, so no worries. This is how we learn. So we fall, we rise again and try to do it again. Now this is a bit easier one. Let's see if you can solve this one. In spite of the widespread belief about its existence, sadism is so rare that it is not even an official psychiatric diagnosis. Now, such questions pose you difficulty of vocabulary. They show you the importance of jargon, the importance of vocabulary. So sadism, or we can say psychiatric diagnosis, they are jargon of psychology. So if one doesn't know the meaning of sadism, this might pose a little bit of difficulty, but again, there are always hints in the questions. The one who is wise enough, who can make wise guessing, will still be able to answer the question. So its closest relative is psychopathy. Sadism is the main subject. Psychopathy is something that we are comparing with sadism. So, but psychopathy is not characterized by malevolent joy. Now you see, even if you don't know the meaning of sadism, they've already given you the meaning. First of all, they talked about sadism, they compared it to psychopathy, and contrastingly, they are also stating that there is some difference between the two. And what is the difference? That psychopathy is not characterized by malevolent joy, which means sadism is characterized by malevolent joy, and unlike it, psychopathy is not characterized by malevolent joy. Malevolent joy is when you derive joy in pain of others, in suffering of others. You think ill will for the other people. So even after all this, sadism even today is a taboo. People don't talk about it, and this is not even considered a psychological, there is no psychological diagnosis to it. If we look at the third sentence, admittedly, psychopaths lack moral emotions and empathy towards victims. So जो psychopath हैं, they don't as in have malevolent joy, they don't derive malevolent joy. What do they do instead? It's simply that the psychopaths are least interested about the society, people around them. So neither do they think of the ill will, nor they think of the well-being of the other people. So they are simply, let's say, asocial. So, but that still leaves the vast majority of violent crime unexplained. Easiest question, I would say. Would you like to answer this one? You can clearly see almost all the lines are talking about psychopathy and sadism, their connection, but this last sentence, it's nowhere talking about these two, and again it's becoming more specific, moving to the violent crime, and we have nowhere been talking about violent crime in the rest of the three lines. So this makes the fourth one the misfit, right? So fourth is the misfit here. Again, you will get this kind of blank or box in exam where you can write the answer, because these are theta type questions, type in typeable answer, where you don't get option, there is no negative marking, you just have to write the right answer. Let's see this one. Even in more commercial environments, you are liable to hear similar objections. Not clear, right? After reading the first line, nothing is clear. We cannot guess what are they talking about. Let's read it further. The young doctor was desperate. Now there is some hint. What are we talking about? We are talking about some doctor. Why is the young doctor desperate? I need to talk to my patients, she said. Okay. So she said, and give them time to ask questions, but I hardly have the time to explain the essentials to them. There is all the paperwork and we are constantly understaffed. So there is a young doctor. What is she desperate about? She's passionate, she's young, she want to perform her profession with all the zeal, right? So she want to talk to her patients and answer all their questions. She want to guide them, diagnose them, suggest them medicine, but she is running short of time because there is shortage of the staff, so she has to do everything. So this is a problem, or let's say an issue that people face, nurses or doctors face in hospitals. So this problem is introduced to us by this line. So this can be our opening line. Such grievances have become sadly familiar not only in medicine but also in education and care work. Again, medicine has been introduced, grievance has been introduced. Grievance was introduced in the second also, because if she is not finding enough time to talk to her patient, this will definitely dismay the patients. They'll be disheartened, they'll be aggrieved, right, that the doctor is not giving us the enough time. So yes, these are connected to each other. The obligations towards productivity, profitability and the market rule. Let's read the last line also and make picture more clear. Complaints come more from the other side of the table as well. Now, would you like to answer this question, guys? So grievance has been introduced. In the fourth sentence, the obligations towards productivity. So why do these grievances arise in the first place? Why do such situations arise? It is because it's the obligation of the doctors that they have to do more work than they are supposed to. Because they are understaffed, it becomes difficult for them, and eventually this leads to grievances on the patient's part, right? Yes, which one is the misfit? So if you see again, if you try to make a sequence of it, this becomes the opening sentence. This is the continuation of this idea. So they are talking about commercial environment, right? They are talking about that you are liable to hear similar objections. So not just hospital, not just the field of medicine. This is a common problem. Such grievances do arise in all the commercial environment. So this is a continuation of it. Again, if you have a look at the third and the fourth option, they are also in continuation with this idea. right? Grievances has again been talked about, so this becomes our third sentence, this becomes the fourth. The obligations towards productivity, profitability, right? Or this can be the third, this can be the fourth, right? But here we don't have to mention the sequence, rather we have to find out the misfit. So if the sequence is 2, 1, 4, 3, this leaves us with this option, the fifth option, because the fifth option is talking about the other side of the table, and nowhere else are we talking about the other side of the table. We are just talking on behalf of the doctors, on behalf of the team of commercial environment enterprise where they face this problem, where they face these grievances, right? So because there is no enough proof, there is no substance supporting this claim, so this is gonna be the misfit. Next you have on screen a question from 2017 CAT exam slot 1. Let's see if you can answer this one. So although we are born with gift of language, research shows that we are surprisingly unskilled when it comes to communicating with others. So a topic has been introduced that humans, we know language, we learn language to communicate to each other, but still we somehow fail in communicating with one another. So why is that so? Let's read it further. We must carefully orchestrate our speech if we want to achieve our goals and bring our dreams to fruition. If you see, in the first sentence, it's just the language and role of language, which is communication, conveying your ideas to the other person. When is a conversation successful? When there is a hearer, when there is a listener. If both of them are speaking and there is no listener, if we are not respecting what the other person is saying, this is not called communication. For communication, something that is being said has to be listened, right? But in this line, we are talking about achievement. We are talking about arranging our speech in such an impressive manner that we achieve our goals and bring our dreams to fruition. So this becomes a little more extreme, but let's not jump to conclusion and read the rest of the sentences also. We often choose our words without thought, oblivious of the emotional effects they can have on others. So this is a part of conversation. When you are careful, considerate of the other person you are talking to, you have to be considerate about the other person's emotions also, right? So yes, this is linked to our topic. We talk more than we need to, ignoring the effect we are having on those listening to us. More or less the same idea that was conveyed in the above line, right? Again, emotions or consideration of the listener is being talked about, the other person is being talked about. We listen poorly. Same idea is in continuation here also. So all in all, most of the lines are about how our communication is often unsuccessful, and the idea behind this is, first, we are not considerate about the emotion of the other person. Second, we don't listen carefully. So this is, we listen poorly without realizing it, and we often fail to pay attention to the subtle meanings conveyed by the facial expressions, body gestures, and the tone and cadence of our voice. Yes guys, so what is that one sentence which is a misfit here? I've made it very clear, I've tried to explain it as much as I can. So if you can see, the connotation of the passage is let's say negative towards us being not considerate enough to see if the communication is successful or not. And then there are reasons stated for it, as in why is a communication not successful. So these three examples, these three sentences, they are giving us examples of why our communication is not successful. It's just the second sentence, the second option, which is going to an extreme side, let's say, because it is talking about fruition of our goals, our dreams, about orchestrating our speech. So that is something we achieve at a later stage. First of all, it's very important we have the basic etiquettes and manners to communicate properly with the other person. Yes. So can you answer this question now? The answer is option 2. Right, guys? So I believe it has by now become somewhat clear how to guess a misfit. So we did a step-by-step analysis as to how to read the sentences, how to try to relate them, how to form a story out of it, how to see what kind of flow of thought is there. First of all, you can even see the tone of the rest of the line. Are they neutral? Are they positive? Are they contrary? Right? And then you can obviously guess the misfit. So again, this requires hard work but smart work also. So that's all for sentence rearrangement and misfit. We've almost covered the topic. We will soon be coming with para completion and RCs also. So keep watching if you don't want to miss out any of the topics related to your MBA entrance exams. So that's all for today. Thank you and have a wonderful learning time.